Hi everyone, welcome to Dream in English. I'm Miss Morales and I'm going to be your English teacher for this channel. As I mentioned last time in my previous video, I often see gaps in my students' English skills. These gaps usually come in the form of their ability to read longer English text, write longer English text, as well as effectively communicate what their intended purpose is. In this video, we are going to be looking at what literacy is, how we can develop it in order to be able to understand, have a greater understanding in our reading, writing, listening comprehension, as well as really learning that standard English varies depending on your audience and purpose. Okay, guys, let's get started. So, what is literacy? Literacy refers to the ability to read and write. However, as you can see, it also includes listening and speaking. This is because everything is interconnected. We don't learn one without learning the rest, right? So it's kind of like saying you don't learn to run before you learn to crawl. Everything takes time and it's developed in a very progressive way. So developing your literacy skills takes time and practice, and the more time you practice, the more you'll be able to develop your ability to, one, identify. What do I mean by that? I mean, identify mistakes, both in your writing and in other individuals' writing, as well as identify meaning. Sometimes you might find yourself reading a piece of text and not even knowing what it is that you just read. So being able to identify the meaning or the purpose of that piece of text, or even a song that you just heard, this all falls into the umbrella of your ability to identify in what you read and in what you hear. Something else that we will be focusing on is understanding. Understanding, again, what you hear, what you write, what you're reading. As you develop the first two skills, you will start to develop your ability to derive meaning, okay? So one thing is understanding, and another thing is deriving meaning. So this concept comes from reading multiple texts and coming to one conclusion. So for example, if you needed to give an opinion on something, you might not just want to read one piece of text. You might want to read multiple different articles, journals or magazine articles, etc., and then come up with one idea. So your ability to derive meaning, in simple words, is your ability to put different ideas together from what you read or hear to come up with your own understanding, view, and opinion of them. Through all of these skills, you essentially, or as a result, are able to become more effective in your communication. So your ability to communicate to others your ideas, thoughts, opinions, feelings, and information through writing and speaking. Literacy can essentially be described as different rooms in a house, whereas grammar is the foundation. Throughout the following video, we will look at each of these points in more. Throughout the following videos, we will look at these points in more detail. In this particular video, we are going to start to develop your ability to identify. Identifying means to know and to say what something is, to find out what something is, or to show what something is. That's a lot of is. Some common synonyms could be recognize, pick out, spot, name, know, discover, find, locate. The fun but also very challenging aspect of English is that for one word, there could be 10 more other words you could use. As you progress in your English comprehension, you'll be able to know when to use a particular word as opposed to another. But essentially, some words mean the same, they just change the context of the text. So in order for us to develop our ability to identify, I want us to do a fun exercise, okay? I'm pretty sure we've all done this as kids, and no matter how younger we get, we still enjoy it, okay? So let's look at the following picture. Can you identify 7 differences? So what I want you to do is I want you to pause your video right now and just have some fun and try to see if you could identify the 7 differences between picture A and picture B. Okay, I'll see you soon. Let's see how you did. I've provided the answers for you, and hopefully you were able to find them. I know that it took me longer than 5 minutes. So if you were able to find them, I think that's amazing. But I've provided the answers for you so you can compare what you found to the answers here. How many mistakes were you able to identify in that short period of time? As I mentioned, it definitely took me longer. And, you know, there's definitely some strategies and skills that is needed in order to be able to spot differences, especially when there's so much things going on. When we're looking for the differences or errors, right, we usually start by looking at the entire picture. So here we first looked at the entire picture. And right when you were asked to do something, your attention or you were able to pick out 1 to 3 differences right away. However, the other differences became a little bit more challenging. And what you probably had to do was then stop and start looking at each character individually. This is because the error or the difference was smaller, very slight, something that wasn't as noticeable. Okay, were you able to identify the spelling mistake between differences and differences? Okay, English is similar to this example. Often when we read large text or when we write large writing pieces, we're not able to identify our own errors, or sometimes we're not able to identify and derive meaning. This is because it becomes confusing. There's so much going on, and we have to learn how to start looking at things individually in sections and really understand and put into practice all the grammar skills that we've learned previously and apply them into that particular task. So next, what I want you to do is I want you to read the following paragraph. Now, there are some grammatical errors in this paragraph that I want you to identify. So there's 15 in total. I want you to pause the video and take 5 minutes in order to see if you're able to identify the errors. Okay, now let's read the paragraph together. Okay, the blue whale is the biggest animal on Earth. Some are as long as 100 foot and weighing 300,000 pounds. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, these gentle hyæns were haunted almost to extinction because humans wanted their blubber to make oil, fuel, soap, and candles. Their pollen was used to make brushes and corsets. The blue whale population is now only 1% of its original size. Let's look at the first 2 sentences together. So in the first sentence, the blue whale is the biggest animal on Earth, somewhere as long as 100 foot and weighing 300,000 pounds. Is this a question? No, it's not asking us anything. It's providing us information, so we know that the punctuation is wrong. Instead of a period, instead of a question mark, this should be a period. Secondly, let's read it again. The blue wall, what is the biggest animal? Can you think of what animal this is? Without even really knowing if this is spelled correctly, I know that there is a mistake. This should read whale. And the way we spell whale is W-H-A-A-L-E. Okay? Is the biggest animal on Earth. Some are as long as 100 foots. We know that the plural form of foots is feet. And weighing 300,000 pounds. Where else is our mistake? It's very small and could easily be overlooked, but biggest. Biggest is spelled B-I-G-G-E-S-T. How did you do? Let's look at our second sentence. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, these gentle hyæns were haunted almost to extinction because humans wanted their blubber to make oil, fuel, soap, and candles. Here, we are listing oil, fuel, soap, and candles. However, we are missing commas. A comma comes after oil, and a comma comes after fuel. Oil, fuel, soap, and candles. Also, we know that the J should be a G for giants. One other mistake is the way of blubber. Now, this is a little bit more tricky, especially because it might be a word that you're unfamiliar with. And very often, because when there is a double letter in a word, we often forget to add it. That's just because the way we pronounce it, if from blubber would need two B's because your first thing would be blah and then burr. Okay. Now, what are some strategies we used? When we read out loud, we could identify mistakes simply because it sounds out of place. We can also use the context of the sentence, what the sentence is about, to identify the errors. As in sentence 1, whale, biggest, feet, and the period were all mistakes. I have written it out for you here, which I will be adding this document in a link below, so you could use it as a reference. And then in sentence 2, we had giants, blubber, and the use of commas. Now, I want to leave you with the task of finding the remaining 3 errors in the last 2 sentences. I want you to leave your answer in the comment section below, and we will review the answers in the following video. Okay, guys, thanks for watching.